Okay, so we are looking at the Unit 3 review sheet here. We're going to start off talking about sectionalism. Which geographic and environmental characteristics of the South led to their reliance on a plantation based economy? So, in the South, there was a hot, wet, humid climate. There was very fertile soil that was good for growing cash crops like cotton. And there were long growing seasons, which again led to more of a plantation based economy in the South and a very large reliance on slavery. Number two, describe the viewpoints of the North and the South on the different issues. As far as slavery goes, people in the North were generally against the spread of slavery out west. In the South, people wanted to maintain the spread of or maintain slavery where it already existed, and also supported the spread of slavery into the West. As far as protective tariffs, the North were in support of tariffs to support and promote American manufacturing. The South were against tariffs. Finally, the North supported the National Bank, and the South was against it. Number three, what were the three terms or results of the Missouri Compromise of 1820? So Maine was carved off from Massachusetts, and Maine entered as a free state. Missouri came into the country as a slave state, and they drew a line at the 3630 line of latitude. Following the Missouri Compromise, any territory north of that line would be free, and any territory south of the 3630 line would be slave. Number four, how did expansion to the West create controversy in antebellum America? Remember, antebellum means before the Civil War. So the controversy surrounded new states entering the Union. The question was whether this new state would have slavery or not. This was important to a lot of people because when a new state was added, if it was slave or if it was free, it could potentially upset the balance in the Senate, which again made this a controversial issue for the entire nation. Number five, what arguments were made by Southerners to justify keeping slavery? So many Southerners argued that slavery was essential to their economy. Many slave owners argued that slaves couldn't take care of themselves and that slavery was actually good for them. And finally, many Southerners claimed African Americans were racially inferior and that slavery was essentially their natural condition. Number six, we're talking about the Compromise of 1850. Four parts of that compromise were: California entered as a free state. The slave trade was outlawed in Washington, D.C. A very strict fugitive slave law was passed that allowed Southern slave catchers to come north to capture escaped slaves. And finally, the slavery question now under this compromise would be decided by popular sovereignty in Utah and New Mexico territories. And remember, popular sovereignty means people voting as to whether to have slavery or not. Number seven, what angered many Northerners most about the Compromise of 1850 and why? So as mentioned, the Fugitive Slave Act was part of the Compromise of 1850. This really angered many Northerners because you had Southern slave catchers coming north, capturing escaped slaves off the streets, and in fact taking many free blacks back into slavery under this law. Number eight, what was the impact of Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin? So this novel really exposed some of the horrors of Southern slavery to people in the North, ended up actually creating many abolitionists and turning a lot of Northerners against slavery. Number nine, what were the terms of the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854? So the Missouri Compromise was overturned, and most importantly, the Kansas-Nebraska Act said that the slavery question in those two territories would be decided by popular sovereignty. Number 10, how did the Kansas-Nebraska Act lead to Bleeding Kansas? So once the Kansas-Nebraska Act was passed, there were pro-slavery forces and anti-slavery forces that rushed into these territories to be able to vote as to whether these territories had slavery or not. Eventually, violence erupts between these two sides, and several hundred people were killed in this violence, which acted as kind of a little preview of what was to come in the Civil War. Number 11, what was Lincoln's positions on slavery when he ran for president in 1860? So initially, Lincoln did not want to get rid of slavery where it already existed. He didn't like it, but more than anything, he did not want slavery to spread. Finally, number 12, why was the election of 1860 described as a sectional election? So different sections of the country voted for different candidates. So overall, the states in the North supported Lincoln, and then most states in the South supported the other candidate, John Breckinridge. We'll pause there and pick up on 13 in the next video.